last time, we began the final chapter in the division entitled The Etheric Body and Prana, which describes the solar logoic out and in breaths as one of the basic cosmic vibrations. DK then moved into a description of pralaya, characterizing it in three parts. A, the cessation of desire. B, a slowing down and gradual cessation of cyclic rhythm, which led to a discussion of the three gunas. And C, the severing of the physical from the subtler body, the subtle body, the etheric body. We then took a look at the plane of abstraction, definition of the plane of abstraction, which exists on 4 levels, depending on the stage of consciousness of the indwelling jiva. Remember these charts? Yeah, we got into it pretty deep. We then continued our discussion of the severing of the physical from the subtle body. After all, that's what this chapter is about. Noting that when the etheric, at whatever level, is shattered, it becomes magnetically non-polarized as regards its indweller and permits, therefore, of escape. So we'll start by rereading the paragraph we left off at last time. Can we get a reader for this? Just the part in the dark font.
Yeah, Heike, can you read?
In the system, the same process is followed by the solar logos. From his high place of abstraction, he ceases to be attracted by his body of manifestation. He withdraws his interest, and the two pairs of opposites, the spirit and the matter of the vehicle, dissociate. With this dissociation, the solar system, the sun of necessity or of desire, ceases to be and passes out of objective existence.
So at this point, all the planets have passed through all their chains, thus fulfilling the objective of this particular or that particular solar incarnation. The idea that the spirit and the matter of the vehicle dissociate can be applied at every level. Solar logoic, planetary logoic, human being, even an atom of substance. As above, so below, using this idea of as above, so below, we can hypothesize that the steps taken in the death of a human being also apply at solar systemic levels, achieving the sattvic rhythm. Remember the tamas, rajas, and sattvic paradigm, right? Achieving that sattvic rhythm, which DK also calls equilibrium, shatters the etheric body and leads to this depolarization that allows the escape of, in this case, the indwelling solar life essence. So next up, can we get a reader? And by the way, anytime you have any questions or comments, just keep them, generally pertaining to our subject matter, what we're talking about at this time. But other than that, please feel free. In fact, I very much encourage you to participate. So could we get a reader, please?
I already have something to say.
Good. Hey, how you doing? It's
Oh, well,
it's Maria Cristina, yeah?
Así es, Maria Cristina. And we're going to ignore the how are you doing, and we're going to go to what an interesting use of the word interesting. I just found that he withdraws his interest.
Yeah. Was that in the last part? Yeah.
The nuances of that word, just like, his interest.
Yeah, I know. I was struck by the same thing. that it was DK doesn't just, he really uses his words very particularly. And you wonder about that, why that? You could, you would expect him
Sounds a bit flirtatious, if you ask me.
It's what?
A bit flirtatious, if you ask me.
Interesting. Yeah, you'd expect him to say he withdraws his energy,
Of
but,
course.
right. But withdraws his interest. It's really an interesting way to say. Thank you, Maria Christina. Okay. Maria Christina, do you want to read this? See what happens when you speak up?
I read in the middle? Yes.
Yeah, you always read in the middle.
This leads finally to the scattering of the atoms of the etheric body into their primordial condition. The subjective life, the synthesis of will and love taking active form, is withdrawn. The partnership is dissolved. The form then breaks up. The magnetism that has held it in coherent shape is no longer present, and dissipation is complete. Matter persists, but the form no longer persists. The work of the second logos ends, and the divine incarnation of the Son is concluded. But the faculty or inherent quality of matter also persists. And at the end of each period of manifestation, matter, though distributed again into its primal form, matter is active intelligent matter, plus the gain of objectivity and the increased radiatory and latent activity which it has gained through experience. Let us illustrate. The matter of the solar system, when undifferentiated, was active intelligent matter. And that is all that can be predicated of it.
Thank you, Maria Christina. Okay, first up. This leads finally to the scattering of the atoms of the etheric body into their primordial condition. So this primordial condition is what DK elsewhere calls the reservoir of matter. We know from his tabulation a couple of pages back that an atom of etheric substance finds its pralaya, its home, its reservoir, on the first subplane of the systemic physical plane, which is itself a reservoir of undifferentiated, pure atomic physical substance. The same undifferentiated atomic substance can be found in the causal body for a human being, the monadic plane for a heavenly man, and on the Adi plane for a solar logos. We might hypothesize that for the, quote, primordial condition to truly be undifferentiated atomic substance, the final pralaya at each of the four levels would have to take place on the atomic subplane of each of these planes, as shown here, but that's just an hypothesis. Okay, next, the subjective life, the synthesis of will and love taking active form, is withdrawn. So, this is a tricky sentence. What is actually withdrawn? So out of the three principles, the third, that of active intelligence, falls away, leaving the pure subjectivity of will and love. The first and second principles, which for a human being are the monad and soul. In an even more subjective state, the soul is also withdrawn into the monad. And next up, the partnership is dissolved. The form then breaks up. The magnetism that has held it in coherent shape is no longer present, and dissipation is complete. Matter persists,
Mhm.
but the form no longer persists. So check to make sure you're muted if you're, I'm getting some noises here. And just unmute when you're called on. Okay, so though DK doesn't mention it here, dissociation always involves fohat, right, or intelligent electricity, which initially binds spirit and matter, but later dissociates them. We tend to lump the terms form and matter together, but they're not the same thing. In fact, they belong to two separate hierarchies, here shown these lowest two hierarchies. This is the magnetism that normally holds it in place, right? So when this life aspect or the disinterest, when the interest is withdrawn, this magnetism dissipates. And the polarization, which connects the hierarchies, and this is true for all the hierarchies, but we're focusing on these two, it just dissipates, and then the lesser lives, which belong to the seventh hierarchy, which are the actual the atomic structure, is dissociated from the form aspect, what DK calls the greater builders, which are those who bring the lesser lives into congeries of form. So that link is broken. Let's see here now. Yeah. The breaking of the magnetic bond dissociates these sixth and seventh hierarchy. MDR notes that Aries initiates the fall into matter, whereas its polar opposite, Libra, represents the equilibrium necessary to dissociate the two. Can we get a reader for this, please?
Yeah, Janet, do you want to read?
Sure. In Aries, we have the duality, which is attached to the bringing together of spirit and matter in the great creative activity of manifestation at the beginning of the evolutionary cycle. Libra demonstrates the perfect balance of spirit and matter, which first came together in Aries. This balance and this relation of the great opposites, spirit and matter, is symbolized for us in the personality situation of balancing the pairs of opposites on the astral plane and finding between them the narrow, razor-edged path which leads the man into the kingdom of the soul.
Thank you. So MDR is relating this axis. These two are on one axis, opposites in the zodiac, and therefore represent this particular form of energy, which is the binding of form to matter and the release of form from spirit. Binding of spirit into form, I should have said, and then the release of that form from spirit. Okay. Next, the work of the second logos ends, and the divine incarnation of the Son is concluded. As the Son, the second logos, is the logos of relationship, wherein development of the soul is a preeminent task. This second great law, the law of attraction, remember, this is all about breaking this attractive element that is also described as magnetism and polarity, right? So this is the dominant law in the solar system. And when it's broken, then the dissipation of the purpose of this solar system, dissipation is complete and the purpose has been completed. Finally, But the faculty or inherent quality of matter also persists. And at the end of each period of manifestation, matter, though distributed again in its primal form, is active, intelligent matter plus the gain of objectivity. In other words, that which it realizes as a result of being in objective form, and the increased radiatory and latent activity which it has gained through experience. Let us illustrate. The matter of the solar system, when undifferentiated, was active, intelligent matter, and that is all that can be predicated of it. So, oddly stated. So, matter does not stay static. Through its long association with spirit and through being molded into the forms needed, all three fires of matter, latent heat, radiation, and the fire of mind, increase in quality until it embodies the vibration of this second solar system. And we're not talking about the consciousness of the second principle. We're talking about matter itself gradually embodies the vibration of this second solar system. This will be the quality of matter needed to form the basis for the next solar system, right? So matter itself actually evolves. Okay? Any thoughts, questions, comments, ruminations? Okay, next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Joe, do you want to read?
Yes. This active, intelligent matter was matter qualified by an earlier experience and colored by an earlier incarnation. Now, this matter is in form. The solar system is not in pralaya, but in objectivity. This objectivity having in view the addition of another quality to the logoic content, that of love and wisdom. Therefore, at the next solar pralaya, at the close of the 100 years of Brahma, the matter of the solar system will be colored by active intelligence and by active love. This means literally that the aggregate of solar atomic matter will eventually vibrate to another key than it did at the first dawn of manifestation.
Thank you, Joe. So first, this active, intelligent matter was matter qualified by an earlier experience and colored by an earlier incarnation. Let's take a look at a passage from later in a TCF on the previous solar system. Could we get a reader, please?
Aaron, do you want to read?
The spark of mind, working through the instinct, drove the material form or substance into such activity that it was enabled to reach up to heights where its opposite pole could be contacted. Animal man aspired, spirit answered. The vibration of the germ of mentality had permeated the substance like yeast. Thus was consciousness awakened. In the previous solar system, in connection with the heavenly men, this was mentioned. This was the method pursued by them, and these advanced cosmic beings entered into consciousness and mastered the three lower planes of the cosmic physical, the planes which man is endeavoring to master now. They individualized as the result of work accomplished during the incomprehensible aeons of endeavor. The entire solar system was much longer
The earlier,
Oh,
sorry.
The earlier solar system was much longer in duration than this one will be. The force in matter was generated by the progression of the ages.
Yeah, so, and force in matter was generated by the progression of the ages. So just as he's been describing in this passage, matter itself evolves as a substance in terms of the nature of the force that it embodies, right? Okay, so next up. Now this matter is in form. The solar system is not in Brelaya, but in objectivity. This objectivity having in view the addition of another quality to the logoic content, that of love and wisdom. Therefore, at the next solar pralaya, at the close of the 100 years of Brahma, the matter of the solar system will be colored by active intelligence and by active love. So active intelligence from the previous solar system, and what will be added is this term, this quality of active love. Interesting phrase. This sort of brings together the third and second aspects, active intelligence and love wisdom. So matter, which we've learned is intelligent substance, is during the 100 years of Brahma of this solar system being requalified by what DK calls active love, suggesting a combination of the second and third principles and ray qualities. DK says elsewhere that active love is love implemented by mind. And then finally, this means literally that the aggregate of solar atomic matter will eventually vibrate to another key than it did at the first dawn of manifestation. So occultly speaking, another key means a shift to a higher vibratory frequency. If we refer to the charts of the three solar systems, excuse me, we can make an educated guess as to the key that atomic matter will vibrate to in the next solar system as well as in the previous solar system by first establishing where atomic matter vibrates in this system. It's not that much of a stretch to hypothesize that the key that atomic matter vibrates to in this system is on the atomic subplanes of the three planes of the form aspect, the mental, astral, and physical planes, which lie directly beneath what DK describes as the three planes of synthesis for this solar system. So that's our key, right? That the substantive aspect directly beneath the planes of synthesis are where the keys of atomic matter vibrate. If we use this placement as a guide, we might hypothesize that the key to which atomic matter will vibrate in the next solar system will also be directly beneath the three planes of synthesis, thus putting it on the atomic subplanes of the monadic, atmic, and buddhic planes. If correct, this means that the physical bodies of human beings, when we compare to how it is in this solar system, right, the lowest of these three being the physical, that the physical bodies of human beings in the next solar system will be Buddhic in nature, right? Okay. Now, since the planes of synthesis were the three lowest planes of the cosmic physical plane in the previous solar system, and since DK says that you have your nature, your physical nature below those, it's harder to hypothesize to where the key of the atomic matter of that system vibrated? Would it have been on one of the lower subplanes of these three planes? Or more radically, but also more logically, were there three now unknown planes beneath what is now our systemic physical plane, from which the lower sheaths of that solar system were made? You know, I mean, maybe you could even hypothesize that what is now the eighth sphere for lost souls was at that time served another purpose, which was the physical realm of the beings of that solar system. This is just all pure conjecture because DK doesn't talk about this at all. So it just remains an open question. Okay, anyway, next up, could we get a reader, please?
Here, can you read?
We can work this out in connection with the planetary logos and the human unit, for the analogy holds good. We have a correspondence on a tiny scale in the fact that each human life period, sees a man taking a more evolved physical body of a greater responsiveness, tuned to a higher key of more adequate refinement, and vibrating to a different measure. In these three thoughts lies much information if they are carefully studied and logically extended.
So it's another way of DK saying ponder on this, right? So let's consider the three thoughts DK suggests that we, quote, carefully study. First, a person taking a more evolved physical body of a greater responsiveness. This suggests an ability to more effectively respond to stimuli coming from one's physical, astral, and mental environments, which in turn suggests more finely tuned and heightened senses. Second, a person taking a more evolved physical body, which is tuned to a higher key, suggests awareness on higher subplanes of the etheric, astral, and mental planes, thus naturally more vital, aspirational, intelligent, and receptive to one's higher mind, right? And third, a person taking a more evolved physical body, which is of more adequate refinement, suggests physical, astral, and mental sheaths composed of a higher cellular refinement, and thus of a higher percentage of atomic subplane matter. And finally, a person taking a more evolved physical body which vibrates to a different measure due to this refinement suggests the ability to attune to the higher vibrations of, for example, the higher etheric centers. These four qualities of responsiveness, being tuned to a higher key and refinement leading to the ability to vibrate to a different measure, are deeply interrelated, each supporting the further development of the other qualities. Okay, next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, I saw Fred's mic open. Did you want to read, Fred?
Yes, okay. Letter D. By the transmutation of the violet into the blue, this we cannot enlarge on. We simply make the statement and leave its working out to those students whose karma permits and whose intuition suffices. Letter E. By the withdrawal of the light, the form should gradually dissipate. The reflex action here is interesting to note. For the greater builders and devas who are the active agents during manifestation and who hold the form in coherent shape, transmuting, applying, and circulating the pranic emanations, likewise lose their attraction to the matter of the form and turn their attention elsewhere. Curious.
Yeah, thank you, Fred.
You're welcome.
Okay, so first, by the transmutation of the violet into the blue, this we cannot enlarge on. We simply make the statement and leave its working out to those students whose karma permits and whose intuition suffices. So MDR, this inspired MDR quite a bit, and he develops this concept. So let's read what he had to say.
Kristen, do you want to read?
The movement from violet into blue is in the direction of the abstraction and reflects a sixth ray mystical technique. Violet represents the physical sphere and blue, the astral. Clues in relation to this idea are found in esoteric healing and in letters on occult meditation. If you think about the other direction, the movement from blue to violet, we are moving in the direction of manifestation. It is an occult rather than mystical movement, a movement characterized by the seventh ray. It takes us into matter. It's interesting to note that blue has less red in it, so the dissipation of red desire is also indicated in a movement from violet to blue. Red is also the color of the first ray, of which the seventh ray is a more concrete reflection. The blue rays, ray 6 and 2, do not contain much of the first ray, as does the seventh or violet ray. Violet has a violence about it and purpose, a desire to manifest from the highest to the lowest. We have here the idea of spirit violating matter to impress itself in the lower worlds. When dealing with violet and blue, we are dealing with the exteriority and interiority, respectively. Blue is the color of the inner quality of the two great logoi in whom we live and move and have our being, the earth logos and the solar logos. To enter into the blue means to enter more deeply into their subjective life, departing from their objective life. We are moving towards the soul, which is archetypically blue. Do the violet devas come from the moon chain? They are certainly the devas of the ethers and thus related closely to form. In our solar system, at least blue is a more interior, subjective color.
Thank you. So interesting commentary, huh? We read quite a bit about the violet devas earlier in this section on prana, and that they are they're devas associated with the earth and with the higher subplanes of the physical plane, right? And allow us to bring in and integrate planetary prana, right? So that's one of the, and as MDR says here, it's that because they're etheric, they're very closely related to form. Any thoughts or questions? I thought it was a fascinating breakdown. DK's phrase, leave its working out to those students whose karma permits and whose intuition suffices. I mean, we can quickly understand about the intuition, but this suggests that there's a deep mystery in this violet to blue shift that can't be arrived at only through the logical thought processes of the lower mind. It's something having to do with the consciousness aspect. But I thought it was quite interesting that karma can actually block this understanding, whose karma permits. I thought that was really interesting. I saw a hand go up there.
It's me,
Hi, you.
Joe. I'm thinking about the etheric body and the crown and the base, the relationship of ray 1 and ray 7, and the blue and the purple.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm also thinking about, I'm using an expression I'm not real good with, continuity of consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And when I think about that, I think in terms of when we meditate, we move into the higher consciousness, and then when we're living on a daily level, we're back into our regular consciousness. And so put all those thoughts together, and I'm getting that an individual with a personality 7 would move back and forth between blue and, what is it, lavender?
Blue and, well, no, it would be violet is the
Violet.
actual color of the 7th ray. It's interesting because DK uses the term lavender when he describes these etheric devas, the violet devas, and that I believe he says the highest subplane.
That's true. The 7th.
Are lilac.
Yes.
Suggesting that they're specifically charged with light. It's not pale. It's vibrant with light, and it makes them more lilac in color. Okay, I see other hands. But wait a minute, before we take others, I wanted to comment on what you were saying. That hang on a sec. That the violet is, I think, going to be very much a part of the Kundalini process. That color is going to really resonate in terms of the nature of the process of the rising of the Kundalini, because as the color of the 7th ray, the whole purpose of the rising of the Kundalini is the reconnection of spirit and of form, of the energy of form, the fires of matter with the fires of spirit. And so I think it would be very much driven by this color. And I also have to wonder is, what part, DK doesn't mention it, but what part do the violet devas play in the binding or bonding of the fires of matter to each other in this process of the rising Kundalini? Okay, that was my comment on that. Thank you, Joe. That was some good observations. So next up.
Was I to say something?
Yes, please do.
My feeling whenever I see DK write, "This we cannot enlarge on," or "this is very secret," is that the next sentence is always very simple.
Yes.
To transmute violet into blue, you have to undergo a purification. If you see the violet as a mixture of magenta and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why he says it's difficult.
Yeah, well, that's because we're in agreement that at the level that we understand it, that's what's being described. I think what he's saying in this little phrase here, that there's more to it than just what we are coming up with. Because I totally agree with you, and And I think MDR also in this, really does recognize it, that, for instance, that the red of desire is taken out when when violet becomes blue, you take out the red of desire. So there's a lot of ideas that we can consider if we have some basis in, occult knowledge. But, with this phrase, he's suggesting, why karma? Whose karma permits. I find that really interesting, because, this doesn't have anything to do with the ability to deduce or even to connect with the intuition of, we can understand that would be a part of it, but whose karma permits. Quite interesting. He always surprises. Anyone else?
Yeah, Miri.
Yes.
Mhm.
I have some thoughts on if the karma permits, but it's
Good.
just thoughts. It's because sometimes the sense of the red and the karma, maybe there are some things that need to be cleaned up and purified in the red realm on the
Yeah.
first levels. And for that transcendence, maybe some incarnations are necessary if there is some blood in our hands, for that matter. But my question will be that's just one idea. But my question is a little bit for the group to reflect on, because the way he talks here and in MDR also, it sounds like maybe it's my egoic mind wanting to find a should, but it sounds like we should go from violet to blue, right? And the idea will be to detach from matter and transcend and more, while with the seventh ray coming in to humanity manifestation with the Aquarian age, we actually are being invited to actually get our hands and be more occult. And MDR said it many times, that the idea wasn't to be just mystic, but to be occult, to learn to alchemize matter. So
Very good
I
point.
see two movements happening here. I wish you could comment. Thank you.
No, that's a great comment. Yeah. In this change of ages, the move for the sixth ray, which is more associated with blue, 6 and 2 are the real source of this blue energy is in second and sixth. And here we are moving, so we're moving kind of the opposite of this in terms of the ages. But you have to remember that evolution is spiraling, right? So we're moving into from a lower demonstration of that blue energy, which is more desire-based, to a higher demonstration of violet energy, and as we move into the Aquarian age, which is really similar to the move from mysticism to occultism, right? That given, we also have this transmutation is also a word we didn't really think about here, but this really suggests the purificatory aspect, that when you transmute violet, that it becomes blue, right? So yeah, very good point. Good discussion so far. Anyone else?
Question, let's see. Tia already asked that, but Magda, is this violet blue issue somehow relatable to the Saint Germain's purple flame meditation, seventh ray?
I can't really address that because I'm not that familiar with the meditation. Is there somebody here that is familiar with it and would like to address that question. I could see that in meditating on the violet, that one could conceive of the basis from which you were moving into the blue, but that's just a guess. Are there hands up that
Yeah, I
address
don't
that?
know. I think Peter and Joe may be addressing that specifically. Tia, did you want to address that specifically, or you had another question?
No, I wanted my question was not asked, and I wanted to go back to that.
I thought that you did. Sorry.
No.
I'll,
No, I did not.
okay,
Let's address
Peter,
this.
Yeah, let
just
Peter
for
and Joe go.
Yeah.
And then I'll read yours, or you can read yours. So Peter, Joe. Peter.
My thought about it is, first of all, this reading in the last 10 minutes or so is a reversal of obviously something I've gotten mixed up, very much starting with the ray 6 and moving towards ray 7 and thinking that somehow that was an improvement. And I guess it is in the interim, but so I've confused thinking that blue was lesser than the violets. And now I
don't think
now
that's
he's
it.
got it just opposite.
Yeah, no, you can't. You have to take two directions into consideration. The ultimate final movement, which is what he's describing here, which he's calling transmutation, which frames this movement in a very specific way. I think it's around the qualities of purification, right? That he's addressing here, even though he didn't tell us much. I mean, he just gives us this one sentence, that by the transmutation of the violet into the blue, right? But you also, as I mentioned before, you have to take into consideration that our movement is spiralic, and that there are higher versions of violet and lower versions of blue. And I think that's what we're moving from as we move from the Piscean age to the Aquarian. We're moving to it's like, take, for instance, Uranus as a planetary ruler, right? Well, as an exoteric ruler, it actually binds spirit to form. That's its purpose, right? But as esoteric ruler, it does just the opposite. It inspires us in such a way that we can release from that lowest level. It addresses us in our condition and is able to release us from it. So it really depends on what evolutional stage you're looking at in terms of comparing these two colors. Okay, anybody have a specific thought about this meditation on the violet flame that was mentioned? If you do, I'd like to hear from you now. That'd be great. Anybody? No? Okay, sorry about that. We can't really. Oh, we have a bunch of hands. Maybe one of you.
Yeah, Robert, do you have something?
I don't have anything on the meditation.
Okay, hang on then,
Okay.
Robert. Okay, just hold back.
Karen or Magda?
I don't
Violet,
have any, I have nothing on the violet flame either.
Okay, and the other,
Magda,
Aaron?
which was her question.
Okay, everybody
Magda?
put their hands down, and just, if anybody has a thought on this violet, then raise your hand or put it in the chat or something. Maybe no one does. It's okay. I just saw some hands.
Okay, Robert left his hand up. Magda's mic's open, but we're not hearing.
Okay.
Anything from
Have we
you?
moved beyond the violet?
Okay, not yet, Robert.
Oh, we haven't, okay.
Okay, Peter. Okay,
Uh,
this is
let's consider a gas flame on a gas stove. It is very blue. When it is red or reddish or violet, it burns off impurities. And that's the image I concentrate on. There is another image, and that is that the more energy there is in light, the more violet it is. But it is a different image. I just consider the image of the flame burning off impurities.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that the red represents impurities being burned off, which gives us an actual physical demonstration of this abstract thought. So, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, we're just going to open it up in general. Anybody who wants to ask, because we don't seem to have anybody who's directly addressing this idea of
yeah. Can we go with Tia?
Yes, absolutely.
So we go with down the list of the questions.
We'll just go down the list, right? Yes, Tia.
I had a question. I thought it was really interesting that MDR refers to it as a six-ray mystical technique to make this transition. And I think in that sense, it may give some hint to when he talks about if karma permits, it may be having to do with the Ashramic alignment of a person and their access to this various type of techniques or information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that again brings up the idea that blue is not better than violet. But there is a energetic progression that's being indicated right in this description here, right? But it's just like, there aren't Ray Lords that are greater Ray Lords than other Ray Lords. But given whatever period that we're manifesting in and the rays that we're working with, you may have a temporary condition where it's desirable to move from one field of energy to another, as in the transition of ages, where we're now looking at this shift from the sixth to the seventh ray. So the mystical way is definitely the path from form to spirit. Occultism brings that back into service. And see, so there you have, which is very similar to moving into the Aquarian age, where then you must work with violet energy, in occultism. That's just the nature of it. Okay, anyone, the next person?
Well, that was the comment. It was interesting because he talks about it in terms of the 1 and 7. And so, that directly talks about the move from the ages, but also it would be interesting, the subtext of the planets that would be involved in this as well.
Another, certainly. Another element that you can bring in is the difference between the AUM as what DK calls the word of glory in TCF, as that in its three aspects, as that which is used in order to manifest. And this is very much a septenary energy, this energy of 7, which is the energy of violet, right? That drives spirit into form, right? Whereas the OM is I would say more like the energy of the blue, because its energy breaks our attachment to form and allows us to dwell in our true selves. Right, so you have a similar kind of a relationship between the AUM to the OM as you do between the violet to the blue, right? Just to complicate things.
But it's also interesting because the sixth ray, you have that heart energy. And then we're talking about 1 and 7 that occupy a very different kind of mental heart synthesis type of energy. Well, so that also is, I think, very, very interesting that the actual technique is a 6-ray technique.
It is, yeah, as he describes here. It is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, Magda, your hand was up and your mic was open, but couldn't hear you. That's
Yes.
why. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My thought is that being the violent flame, pure energy with a very transformative power governed by the masters of the 7th ray, it's the purple violet color. It's like has a blazing power, like an all-powerful consuming fire of all the other colors. And this meditation of that I was mentioning in the comments of Saint Germain was not public until 20th century, and only a few chosen persons were initiated in this meditation. So my work hypothesis is that it's really the new times color meditation synthesis. And in that, I was asking if someone knows about this Saint Germain, which is 7th ray, Christian Rosenkreuz, Mother R, and all that current, which is the new, as we know, ray that we need to synthesize. That is my hypothesis.
Yeah, well, the higher aspect of the, hang on a sec. The higher aspect of the 7th ray is shambolic, right? Because the idea is, so I could very much imagine 7th ray being, the ray of Saint Germain, the ray of who was Rakowski and is now the Lord of Civilization. That it is, the shambolic impulse, the idea of reuniting humanity with Shambhala, which was started as soon as the hierarchical conclave started back in 1425, but really came to the fore in 1925 with a whole new series of energetic shambolic impulses, right? There was one in 1975 and 2000 that we know of that DK talks about. And that is, you can see, as very much connected with the energy of 7 and 1 connecting. That is 1st and 7th ray in direct connection. This idea of forging a direct connection with humanity, I think, could be seen as a function of this violet energy, right? Yeah, thanks for that. That brings in some new insights. Anyone else?
There's a lot of text, so let me.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
Tia, karma permits could refer to ashramic alignments.
Right, we talked about that, someone.
And Fred, your karma may bind you to other responsibilities. You may have the capability, but not the obligation. Transmute by violet fire, all root and core not of God's desire. And Maria Christina, violet indicates the physical, etheric realms, whilst blue resonates with the astral.
Right. Yeah.
And DK is very cautionary about the use of violet energy.
Oh, is that right? Interesting. Okay. You could see why, in terms of its basis in the physical, right? Okay.
And I know there was a lot of people's hands up. So if you want to ask the questions that you wanted to ask.
Right. We went through a kind of flurry there. So if you weren't heard and you would like to make a comment or ask a question, put your hand back up and we'll get to it now. Okay. So, okay, yes, Peter.
This issue of Saint-Germain, I think he is very much, he is a phenomenon. I don't know if it is a person or a persona or whatever it is, but it's very much a seventh ray issue. Just as is alchemy, because alchemy transmutes the material objects.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Also, masonry is a seventh ray discipline, right? Alchemy and masonry are both seventh ray disciplines, and Saint Germain was a seventh ray master. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so next up, by the withdrawal of the life, the form should gradually dissipate. The reflex action here is interesting to note. For the greater builders and devas who are the active agents during manifestation and who hold the form in coherent shape, transmuting, applying, and circulating the pranic emanations, likewise lose their attraction to the matter of the form and turn their attention elsewhere. This interesting phrase, lose their attraction to the matter of the form. Okay, so withdrawal of the life results in a break between the greater and lesser devas, or elemental lives, who construct the outer form with their bodies. That's the seventh kingdom. As shown before, these two devic classes are found in the sixth and seventh hierarchies. This withdrawal initiates the law of disintegration, which is the negative aspect of the law of cohesion, resulting in dissipation of the little lives, that's these seventh hierarchical lives, heretofore held together by the sixth hierarchy, the greater builders. See, DK calls them here, the greater builders. I saw a hand go up before we move into this reading.
Nasa.
Oh, yeah, in that last passage where it's talking, if you could put, yeah, the one, that one. And I come out of I grew up in religious science, which is like Ernest Holmes' science work. And when you're trying to create something, you're putting your attention on what it is that you want to create. And to me, that turning the attention elsewhere is that kind of resonated with that science of mind teaching, which you're creating, so, and as above so below. So if on the human level you want to create a car, and so you think about a red Lexus or whatever, and that's your focus, and then somehow whatever. But it also, what do I also I read a book years ago called The Red Lion, and it's very long and very good. But in it, the main character has a lifetime where he is a chela, I would say chela to a magus. And the magus says to create out of clay a form and then breathe life into it. And so he does that. He creates this person-like form, and it does jobs for him and everything. And then after a while, the magus says, okay, now, get rid of it. Right. And then in the process of it, he is doing everything he can to kill it. And finally, he is in a death to death, life and death battle with it, comes out just barely alive. And it is suddenly he is struck by that he's never going to be able to kill it because he's created it, it knows him. And what he has to do is just withdraw his energy from it.
Interesting. There it is.
Yeah, it's not a fight. It's just
right.
And to me, that is so applicable to so many things. It's not doing battle with anything. It's just withdrawing your energy.
Yeah, it's the basis behind the comment, resist not evil, which evil can be just considered the form life, meaning that you don't do battle with it because that energizes it. So in this case, what we started with, you just lose interest in it. You withdraw your attention from it, right? Yeah, that's very interesting, and it's very apropos to what we're just talking about here. Thank you. Anyone else?
Robert.
Yeah, this discussion has been interesting to me in the sense that we can possibly draw the tentative hypothesis that our karma doesn't permit and our intuition doesn't suffice to work this question out. And yet everybody came rushing, a lot of people came rushing in, so it's really interesting. And one of the things that DK does a lot with colors is that they're blinds. This may have nothing to do with blue. I'm not saying that's the answer, but it may just not have anything to do with that. And so we can be led on a wild goose chase. And I think when he says that, we should probably pay attention to what he's really saying in between the lines.
Yeah, if your karma permits, you make some good points. In the 9th rule of initiation, he's talking about this band of brothers that go beyond color, leave color behind, and just see light, right? And so color is definitely in the realm of differentiation, and the unity is not blue. Unity is something beyond any color demonstration. So, that's another thing to keep in mind as you're looking at this, and that DK says at one point that indigo is the goal of endeavor, right? That's his line. Indigo is the goal of endeavor. And of course, indigo is the second ray color. It's also very much connected with blue. And so, you can put that into the mix too. What does that mean? That which is represented by the term indigo is the goal of endeavor, or does it mean, and this is what I tend to think, that the vibratory quality of indigo is that quality that we are endeavoring to be immersed in on the evolutionary path. That's how I define that. So you could put that into the mix too. Anyone else before we go on?
Yeah, one more comment in text from Silky or Paul. It is interesting that in the sign of Aries, the red is found above Mars and the violet above Uranus as the hierarchical ruler.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wanted to add something to what Nasa was saying, is that, I wrote something once where I said, when you are against something, you are actually for it. When you're not for or against it, you have transcended or transmuted it. And when you are actually for something, you are indeed supporting it. And I think it's really important today where there's a intent by darker forces to keep us fixated against problems, which
And thus binding
allow
us to them.
those, binding them and supporting them to continue, where
Yep.
instead of focusing on the vision of the new economy or the new peaceful world, we're against.
Yeah,
the
we all
war.
need to lose interest,
Yes.
in certain things in order to, reform the new world. Thanks for that, Mikhail.
And then Magda says, to see violet energy, your karma must be mature for it. Your third eye must be trained. Violet Shambhala meditation became available last century, as you said. It's new. So decay indicates that only progressively following karma dynamics will get integrated in the Antakarana building, starting from those human beings automatically highly spiritualized and therefore activated to violet Aquarius vision.
Yeah, because there's always the danger of falling into the other pole of violet, hence the warning of working with violet until you're ready, right? Okay, well, that was a fantastic discussion on this.
There's two more now.
Okay, discussion's not over. Go ahead.
Blinds can function like Zen show hands, forcing us to think about the proposition. And across Mercury, whose color? Blue? Question mark. I guess that's saying, is Mercury blue? Cross Mercury is the color blue.
Well, it depends on which of the ray aspects of Mercury you're looking at. It's normally identified with the fourth ray, but one of its inner qualities is the second ray. And so, I always think of visualize the mask of Tutankhamun, which was, common funereal mask of many of the pharaohs, where you have these alternating gold or yellow and deep blue or lapis lazuli bands. And to me, it always indicated the inner and the outer life, brought together. And I think of Mercury that way. It's the messenger between the higher and lower aspects. And I would say that the blue and the yellow could very much represent that. Anyone else? Okay. Next up, by the withdrawal of the life, the form should gradually dissipate. The reflex action here is interesting to note. For the greater builders and devas who are the active agents during manifestation and who hold the form in coherent shape, transmuting, applying, and circulating the pranic emanation likewise lose their attraction to the matter of the form and turn their attention elsewhere. I know I read that already, but after all that discussion, I wanted to restate it. So withdrawal of the life results in a break between the greater and lesser devas, as we discussed, right, which are represented by these two hierarchies. And what you have is the bringing in of the law of disintegration, which is the negative aspect of the law of cohesion. And this is what allows for the lesser lives to be released. Can we read this description of the law of disintegration?
Yeah, Maria Michaelis. You want to read?
Sure. So where am I reading? I can't, oh, I see. The law of disintegration. This is the law that governs the destruction of the form in order that the indwelling life may shine forth in fullness. It is another aspect of the law of cohesion, the reverse side, if one might so express it, and is just as much a part of the divine plan as that of attraction. It is one of the laws that ends with the solar system, For the great laws of attraction, cohesion, and love last on into that which is to come. The law of disintegration has its correspondence in cosmic law, but it is almost incomprehensible to us. The law of economy holds the key to this law. When the monad has circled through all disintegrating forms and has achieved the sixth initiation, it is resolved into its primal monadic source, and the five lesser sheaths are destroyed. Later on, the monads themselves are synthesized, not disintegrated. This law controls only from the third plane and ceases action in this particular fashion when the third plane is transcended.
Okay, so it controls from the third plane because it has to do with the form aspect, which begins on the atmic level. So, as he says, sixth initiation, all this white shown here falls under the law of disintegration. And then the initiate is released from all these forms, not just like at the fourth where you're released onto the Buddhic plane, but here you're released onto the monadic plane, right? Thank you, Maria. Okay, can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Mary, you want to read?
On the path of the outbreathing, whether human, planetary, or logoic, this building devas, on the same ray as the unit desiring manifestation, or on a complementary ray, are attracted by his will and desire, and perform their office of construction. On the path of inbreathing, whether human, planetary, or logoic, they are no longer attracted, and the form begins to dissipate. They withdraw their interests, and the forces, likewise entities, who are the agents of destruction, carry on their necessary work of breaking up the form. They scattered it, as if it is occultly expressed to the four winds of heaven, or to the regions of the four breaths, a fourfold separation and distribution. A hint is here given for careful consideration.
Thank you. Okay, so first, on the path of outbreathing, whether human, planetary, or logoic, these building devas on the same ray as the unit desiring manifestation or on a complementary ray are attracted by his will, right? Whether, that the will of the human, planetary, or logoic will, and desire, and so the will and desire, and perform their office of construction. Okay. So is the quote unquote unit desiring manifestation the soul in terms of a human being? Is it a soul or personality? When first considering this, it seemed to me it had to be the soul, since a thinking, desiring personality doesn't exist until after incarnation. But then I realized that the ray of the personality would be known by the soul before the incarnation is sent forth, and therefore the soul would invoke a ray-aligned Davic group to aid in the building of the personality sheaths. And this could happen, at higher levels as well. So if this hypothesis is correct, the soul would invoke the needed Deva group by means of a mantra. DK says, this brings me to another group of mantras used in connection with the devas themselves. Rhythmic mantras that put the one who uses them in contact with the deva group he seeks. These mantras are, of course, forms of ray mantras, for they call the devas on some one ray. So this could be, what he's referencing when he's talking about this aligning with the will of the Creator on the path of outbreathing. Next, on the path of inbreathing, whether human, planetary, or logoic, they are no longer attracted and the form begins to dissipate. So for a human being, the inbreathing entity is, of course, the soul. This inbreathing would end the influence of the law of cohesion, at which point the building devas would withdraw, thus signaling the commencement of the law of disintegration. Next, they withdraw their interest in the forces, likewise entities, who are the agents of destruction, carry on their necessary work of breaking up the form. So agents of destruction wield the law of disintegration, breaking the cohesion that exists between the little lives that make up the greater, now disintegrating congery of lives. This is very particularly the work of first ray David groups. The word dis in disintegration aptly describes the process. And finally, they scatter it, as it is occultly expressed, to the four winds of heaven, or to the regions of the four breaths, of fourfold separation and distribution. A hint is here given for careful consideration. So this is a deeply occult statement. To understand it, we must keep in mind that the lesser death of a single human incarnation is not really the main focus of this instruction. It's part of it, but it's not the main focus. It is rather written from the perspective of the final death of the form aspect that takes place at the fourth initiation, or even at the sixth, and which in both cases, which releases the disciple from karma and thus the need to incarnate. The four winds of heaven emanate from the four Maharajas. We learned this in HPB, and also DK mentions the four Maharajas, the lords of the four directions and of karma, very specifically on earth. At the time of the final liberation, karmic equilibrium is achieved, and the four elemental lives, which function on the 18 lowest subplanes, right, the three worlds of human endeavor, return to the reservoir of life, which is the source of these quote unquote four winds. They both belong to the same source. So rule 4 from Rays and Initiations gives us a description of this process, actually. Could we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Nasa, do you want to read?
Sure. Rule 4. For disciples and initiates, let the group see that all the 18 fires die down and that the lesser lives return unto the reservoir of life. This they must bring about through the evocation of the will. The lesser wheels must not for aye revolve in time and space. Only the greater wheel must onward move and turn.
Thank you. Any thoughts or questions about this segment, this idea? All right. Next paragraph. Can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Peter, do you want to read?
Yes, though no pictures have been drawn of deathbed scenes, nor of the dramatic escape of the palpitating etheric body from the center in the head, as might have been anticipated, yet some of the rules and purposes governing this withdrawal have been mentioned. We have seen how the aim of each life, whether human, planetary, or solar, should be the effecting and the carrying out of a definite purpose. This purpose is the development of a more adequate form for the use of the spirit, and when this purpose is achieved, then the indweller turns his attention away, and the form disintegrates, having served his need. This is not always the case in every human life, nor even in every planetary cycle. The mystery of the moon is the mystery of failure. This leads, when comprehended, to a life of dignity and offers an aim worthy of our best endeavor. When this angle of truth is universally recognized, as it will be when the intelligence of the race suffices, then evolution will proceed with certainty and the failures be less numerous.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, first up, though no pictures have been drawn of deathbed scenes, nor of the dramatic escape of the palpitating etheric body from the center in the head, as might have been anticipated, ... Okay, since the time of the writing of TCF, drawings have been made of the etheric body escaping from the head, most notably by Alex Gray, but I dare not show an image of his painting since his lawyers mount a particularly robust defense of Alex's copyrighted images. So nobody dares to actually use them in their presentations. But if you're interested, you can easily Google it yourself. The image is called Dying by Alex Gray, Gray with an E. Somebody's typing away, I hear it. And it's exactly what he describes here. This idea of the escape, this dramatic escape from the center of the head, right? So, if you don't want to do it now, you might just note that. Alex Gray, and it's simply called Dying. Next. Yet, some of the rules and purposes governing this withdrawal have been mentioned. Well, this is 1925, remember. And since TCF was written, DKA has written quite a bit of additional material on death and dying, which Robert Borrell collected in his compilation, Death, the Great Adventure. And you can do word search and come up with a tremendous amount of material on this subject. Next, we have seen how the aim of each life, whether human, planetary, or solar, should be the effecting and the carrying out of a definite purpose. This purpose is the development of a more adequate form for the use of the spirit. So it's a good definition of the purpose of a lifetime. In the recent section on Kundalini, we learned that robust physical health, a purified astral vehicle, and a controlled mental body are prerequisites for blending the three fires of matter and mind. They thus represent at least one of the purposes of incarnation for the many lives leading up to the blending of the Kundalini fire. For more advanced disciples, the quote-unquote definite purpose can take the form of some specific mission. For example, George Patton, the American general, World War II general, is on record proclaiming that he reincarnated specifically to lead the Allied invasion of Europe. And of course, there's little doubt that HPB and Alice Bailey incarnated specifically in order to reinstate the ageless wisdom teachings. Next, and when this purpose is achieved, and then the indweller turns his attention away, and the form disintegrates, having served his need. For example of this, we need look no further than the writer of this treatise, who died shortly after, within months, after finishing the monumental task of recording the teachings of Master DK. You know, we have to wonder whether when AB wrote these words that we're right now reading, which was, she was still a young woman. It was earlier in her tenure with DK. You have to wonder if she didn't realize that she too would pass after completion of her purpose, which is the completion of this monumental project, which DK told her about in advance and told her it would take 30 years. Next, this is not always the case in every human life, nor even in each planetary cycle. The mystery of the moon is the mystery of failure. I'm sure each of us could ask themselves whether or not we have fulfilled the purpose designated for this incarnation. We certainly have in our human family shining examples of those who apparently have or are in process of fulfilling their purpose. Of course, the true purpose of a planetary cycle is only known by those with planetary consciousness. Let's take a look at MDR's thoughts on this topic. Can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Robert, you want to read?
The moon was a failure because the lower four, the elemental life, emerged into a dominant position and could not be controlled by the higher or rational aspects. The last necessary human incarnation occurs with the taking of the fourth initiation. The moon as the symbol of incarnational life is conquered. Interestingly, the moon is ruled by ray 4, which correlates with the four elemental lives, with which it is no longer necessary to engage, and the fourth initiation, at which time this disengagement or dissociation becomes final. All this is achieved through sacrifice, the color of which is yellow. The law of sacrifice is related to the fourth ray and thus to Mercury and the color yellow. It is important to realize that the moon, fourth ray, falls in the sign Scorpio, humanity's sign, and a sign ruled by the fourth ray. Scorpio's relationship to the number 4 and hence to the fourth initiation and the fall of the moon is as the sign of death. One dies in one's fourfold elemental nature at the fourth initiation to live as a Buddhic being, focused on the fourth plane, the Buddhic. One dies to the lower 18 subplanes, the lunar subplanes. Interestingly, the moon arcanum in the tarot deck is number 18. This card represents illusion, presumably the illusion to be encountered on the 18 lower subplanes. In this section, Master DK is speaking of those incarnational cycles in which purpose has not been fulfilled. The greatest case of non-fulfillment in the history of our planet was the case of the failure on the moon chain. We learn that we as human individualities can experience our own correspondence to the failure on the moon chain. At least to know the incarnational purpose is of importance. This can go a long way towards the fulfillment of that purpose. The entire process of fulfillment on the moon chain had to be, be aborted according to the decision of the solar logo.
Thank you, Robert. Any thoughts about this? Interesting about the moon arcanum being the number 18. Also, if you divide that by 3, you get 666, which is a symbol, a numerical symbol for the form aspect, right? You can look at that as, you know, the 6 subplanes beneath the 7th, the top one, the first, I should say, which represent the form aspect of each plane. So you have 666, but it more specifically represents the 4, the 7, and the 7 of the 3 lower planes, right? Okay. Next comment. This leads, when comprehended, to a life of dignity and offers an aim worthy of our best endeavor. So we see here that an understanding of one's purpose and the development of dignity are closely related. A human being has dignity when he or she has clear purpose and abides by that purpose, thus resisting that which leads towards enslavement of the consciousness by the elemental lies. And finally, when this angle of truth is universally recognized, as it will be when the intelligence of the race suffices, then evolution will proceed with certainty and the failures will be less numerous. So universal recognition can be interpreted on many levels. On this planet, unconditionally demonstrated purposeful living at all levels will only come when the Earth becomes a sacred planet. For humanity, purpose and mindfulness are deeply related. There can be no consistent development of purpose without the linking of mind and heart. And with this statement, we conclude our 18 plus webinar series. Actually, it's turned out to be 20, most of 20 webinars on Division C, which is what we started with, of Section 1, entitled The Etheric Body and Prana, and begin Division D, a very short division, entitled Kundalini and the Spine. So could we get a reader just for this description of what lies ahead in this division?
Yeah, let's see. All the way up to the top. Hike.
Section 1, Division D, Kundalini and the Spine. 1. Kundalini and the 3 triangles. First, in the head. Second, in the body. Third, at the base of the spine. 2. The arousing of Kundalini.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start this section by taking a look at the footnotes referenced in the title by the word Kundalini. Here we have it, right? Can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, Janet.
Kundalini, the serpent power or mystic fire. It is called the serpentine or annual power on account of its spiral-like working or progress in the body of the aesthetic developing the power in himself. It is an electric, fiery occult or foad power, the great pristine force which underlines all organic and inorganic matter, HPV. Kundalini is the static form of the creative energy in bodies, which are the source of all energies, including prana. This word comes from the adjective kundalini, or coiled. She is spoken of as coiled because she is sleeping, lies coiled, and because the nature of her spine is spiraling. In other words, this Kundalini Shakti is that which, when it moves to manifest itself, appears as the universe. To say that it's coiled is to say that it is at rest, that is, in the form of static potential energy. Kundalini Shakti in individual bodies is power at rest, at the static center round which every form of existence as moving power revolves.
Okay, and these two last quotes were from The Serpent Power by Arthur Avalon. So First up, Blavatsky's quote, Kundalini, the serpent power or mystic fire, it is called the serpentine or annular. Annular just means circular. The annular power on account of its spiral-like working or progress in the body of the ascetic, developing the power in himself. It is an electric, fiery, occult, or phohatic power, the great pristine force which underlies all organic and inorganic matter. In his book, The Mental Body, A.E. Powell describes Fohat and Kundalini as two different forms of energy, listing these two plus prana as the sum total of all existing energy. But HPB describes Kundalini itself as Fohatic. An ascetic is one who has given up all personality desire, a necessary condition for development of the Kundalini. Especially important is control of the 2 points within the base of the spine that carry the seeds of the male and female sexual energy. Next, 3 quotes from Arthur Powell, Avalon's The Serpent Power. And I think we'll pull the plug right here.